Welcome and thank you for tuning into the Cougar Spotlight Podcast, our special Super Saturday edition of the Cougar Spotlight Podcast. This is kicking off our brand new series here at Caldwell University. Every Friday we will be working, and then every Saturday we will be posting an episode for the Cougar Spotlight Podcast, wherever you may be, however you may be listening, or however you may be watching on our official Caldwell Athletics YouTube page or on the SAAC network as we get set for Super Saturday coming up here, as we have a doubleheader for basketball, as Caldwell University will be hosting the Dominican University Chargers for both men's and women's basketball. But let's start off actually with, I think, probably the biggest surprise this year. Caldwell's women's basketball program. My goodness, have they been stars. Looking at my stat sheet here, Caldwell this season currently, they're 13-11. They do have a game tomorrow as we're recording this against Jefferson on the road. It is non-conference, so it won't count towards their conference record, but it will count towards their overall record. They're currently 13-11 overall, 7-6 in the conference. The last two seasons for the Cougars really haven't been so kind, as last year they were 8-19 overall, 4-12 in the conference, and then the year before 10-18 overall, 6-12 in conference. Currently, as it stands, they have clinched postseason marks. They currently sit second in the SAAC North. They currently are averaging 63.5 points per game with an average point margin of around +2 compared to last season, which they averaged 65 points a game, but an average point margin of -5. They currently are 6th in the conference in points per game, 5th in allowed points per game. They also have the 1st, 3rd, and 24th ranked scorers this season, in 1st being Janelle Lewis, 3rd being Lucy Coogan, and 24th being a guest that we'll have in a few short moments, Neysa Aguilar. And Brooke Corbett also currently leads the conference in steals, averaging about 3 a game. As somebody who called almost all of the women's basketball games last year, I came into this season saying, okay, they had a very, very young roster last year. Almost all of them were freshmen. Pretty much almost every single freshman on the roster last year played a decent chunk of minutes. And I kind of expected, okay, you get these freshmen who played big minutes. They're now sophomores. How are they going to be? You get this transfer superstar from FDU. How is she going to be? You still got your 2 stars in Coogan and Lewis back on the roster. How are they going to be? Ladies and gentlemen, this team has completely blown away my expectations for what I would have expected from this season. I thought they'd make a jump. Ladies and gentlemen, they leaped a mile. And all it really took was just lowering that point margin, going from -5 to +2. That has given them such a shot in the arm defensively. Brooke Corbett is an absolute star on the defensive end. Of course, Lewis and Coogan, they're going to get you buckets everywhere. But it's this gelling that this roster has done. Neysa Aguilar, again, she'll be on in a few short moments. She has fit this roster like a glove. Like an absolute glove, coming from a 20-point-per-game scorer, rookie of the year at FDU Madison. She's come onto the scene here at Division II, and she's been just as fantastic. Lewis is currently putting together probably one of the best campaigns you could see for Player of the Year. Lucy Coogan recently just hit 1,000 points. She's been a superstar since the moment she stepped out there on the floor. They are 3-2 in their last 5 games. However, in 2 of those victories, they have won by over double digits. This is a roster that is clicking. They are gelling. Their bench is now starting to pick up. We've seen Marissa Sorvillo the last couple games really give them the shot in the arm that they've needed from a long, rangy wing, as well as being able to score out on the perimeter. Nia Clemens has been incredible playing big-time minutes. Shantea Alexander, I think, is an absolute stud defensively. And although they have been hit with some injuries this season, it has not deterred them in the slightest. But I think more than ever, it's this sense of history. A lot of people say that history is doomed to repeat itself. I also think that history is kind of the map for how you go to success. This women's roster has the chance this Saturday They've already clinched the postseason. They could potentially clinch a home game with a win against the Dominican Chargers. I looked this up. I didn't believe this was true, but this is actually true. The last home playoff game Caldwell has had in this stadium was 2019 against Georgian Court. They would lose that game. The last home playoff win they've had was in 2018, where they beat Chestnut Hill 109-49. Folks, you want to talk about history. There's history written all over this team right now, lowering their point margins, increasing their defensive output. This is a team that is finesse. They could beat you in a scoring battle. They have not turned the ball over. They have been situationally excellent, and that is the biggest success you have to give Coach Conforti, is the belief in this roster to turn things around. They started clicking at the end of last year. Or at the end of last year, you saw some glimmers. You saw there were some moments where you're like, this team's got something. They still made those errant mistakes. They don't make those anymore. They don't make those mistakes. They're now cashing in on turnover buckets. They're better between possessions. They're better up and down the floor. And I think more than ever, they are clicking at the right time. And with your final 4-game stretch that you have now, you have to capitalize on this. You have to capitalize on it. And on Saturday, in front of the biggest crowd imaginable this season so far. That playoff game, if they get the home playoff game, will potentially be even bigger. But this Saturday, in front of that crowd, I think we're due to see the Cougars make history, clinch their spot at home. They've already clinched the postseason spot, so we know they'll be in the playoffs, and I think in the playoffs they're going to be doing some damage against the South. But I think if they were to capitalize on Saturday, look out, folks. This is a team that's hungry, and this is a team that's ready to ball. I want to shift gears to this. I want to go to our men's division now. So men's basketball currently, they are 15-9, 7-6 in conference. As I stated, both teams will play tomorrow as we're recording this on Tuesday. They will play on Wednesday against the Jefferson Rams. They're 7-6 currently in conference, although that Jefferson game, as I also previously mentioned, is out of conference, so it won't affect their conference record. But if you look at Dean Johnson's tenure as head coach, it's been quite the ride. As his first stint at the head role, they went 22-10. Obviously, we all know it's well documented. Won the SAAC championship, made an upset in the NCAA Division II tournament. They went 14-4 in conference. Then last season was a bit of a different story. They went 14-14 overall, 9-7 in conference. Just missed out in the final game against Bloomfield to end off their season and miss the postseason. Currently now, they are ranked 9th in the Eastern region in terms of the Division II basketball world. And they currently, right now, as it stands, are ranked 4th in conference, or I believe it's 3rd, actually. Excuse me, they're ranked 3rd in the SAAC North. A number that jumps out to me is the number 8. This men's roster has had 8 one-score games, so games that have been decided between 3 points or less. In all of those games, they are 8-0. In single-digit games, so games below 10 points, they have played 15 of those games. They are 12-3. Why do I bring this up? Because when it comes down to it, that isn't just slouches from players. That is situational play. And situationally, this men's team has been excellent all season long. When the going gets tough, they fight. They have transitioned away from how they were the previous 2 years under Coach Johnson, which is this fast-paced, kind of rocket-fueled roster, a lot of three-pointers, a lot of fast break, kind of flowing with the game. They've now gone back to the Mark Carino style of team, which is we're going to keep you within 60 points, and we're just going to get into a phone booth, and we're just going to bully you down low. And a lot of it has to do with DeAngelo Horn, another man who you will see here in studio in a few short moments. DeAngelo Horn currently sits at number 14th in the conference in points per game. He is an absolute superstar. An absolute superstar. He has come in from Castle Rock, Colorado, at 2 JUCO stints, has transitioned beautifully. He has been excellent up and down the floor. His hustle has been there. He has given the exact shot in the arm. I know I just said that with the women's roster, but really, Horn has been the shot in the arm this men's roster has needed, because you needed somebody who's going to fly down the court and on both ends of the floor is going to be dynamic and explosive. He's been that all season long. But it's not just that, though. This was a team that was plagued with injuries early in the season. They're finally getting healthy. Mark Heber has been back, and he's been better than ever. Not Isaiah Filbert, excuse me. Kirk Parsons. Kirk Parsons has been great. He had a devastating knee injury last season. He's now back. He's been great coming off the bench as well. You've seen a lot of these big-time scorers that are getting back, and now you're starting to see the flow start to pick up. Jaden Williams has finally started to get back into his rhythm. Isaiah Filbert just had a 30-point performance. He's been great coming out. Heber has finally gotten back into the scoring flow. Melvin Evans has started to pick up the scoring as well. This is a roster that's clicking, and they're going to need it. And a big thing to note is Caldwell has not lost a home game since January 14th, where they played Bridgeport 68-75. That's one of those 15 games that was in single digits. They have not lost a home date since that. They have been 3-2 in their last 5 games. All of their wins have come within single digits. This is a team that in the final 4 minutes, crunch time, they have been excellent. And this is a revenge game for them. They lost on January 28th at Dominican, 67-74. This is a revenge game for the Cougars. And this is a game where you need that Final Four game push. Again, that Jefferson game is not going to help you out in conference, but it will help you out overall, so you must win that. But not only that, though, you get 3 games now at home to end off the season in Dominican, Wilmington, and Bloomfield. Those are your 3 final home dates. The Cougars could win out, and they could potentially find themselves within the top 2 or 3 seed currently in the North. And I've spoken to Dean Johnson before about this. He said flat out that to win the North, it's going to be a war zone. All the games that are within those one-score games, that's what it's going to be like for the rest of the year. And wouldn't you want on your side to be the team that's the best in those one-score games? No other team in this conference, I checked this, no other team in this entire conference has played more single-score games than the Cougars. And no other team that has been undefeated in those one-score games. The Cougars have won every single game that's within 1 score. Situationally, they've been excellent. They've been great defensively. Derek Bueno has always been a stud. He's been doing great. DeAngelo Horn, outstanding. Mark Heber, finally back to form. Melvin Evans as well. He's a great player. I think he leads this team in blocks. This is a veteran roster. They're clicking at the right time. In the last 5 games, I also looked this up. In the last 5 games, you had 2 or more players score over 10 points. In 3 out of those 5 games, 4 players have scored over 10 points. The only player to score over 20 points was Isaiah Filbert in a loss where he dropped 30. You're clicking, you're getting your scores, you're getting this right. And with the final 4-game push to end off the season, I think Caldwell has a really strong opportunity to make it, not just in the postseason, but if they get there, look out, because they're a team that's going to do some damage. Cougar Spotlight Podcast will be back shortly. Brooke Martin will be in studio in just a few short moments. We also are getting interviews with Neysa Aguilar, star for the women's basketball roster, and DeAngelo Horn, as I mentioned, a superstar for our men's basketball roster. Don't go anywhere, folks. If you like watching what you're seeing, you could check out the SAAC Network. It's the official digital network of the Central Atlantic Collegiate Conferences. The network encompasses all original programming from not just Caldwell Athletics, including its games, including shows like you're seeing right now from Cougar Spotlight. You can access the network on both your desktop and mobile or tablet devices, as well as on TV platforms like Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, and Apple TV. Official website is caccnetwork.com. Well, the CACC Network app is available for the iOS in the App Store and Android on Google Play. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back shortly.
Took the reins on everything, and I feel like now I know what to do and what to expect, so he really helped me on that aspect. But I mean, last year we had to do so much to prepare and get ready for it, and we're already starting that with gift baskets, student athletes bringing in all their stuff for their individual baskets, professors bringing stuff in. So I feel like we have a good jump on all that stuff and getting ready to kind of put it all together.
My guest at this time she needs no introduction, but she's going to get one anyways because she's so special to our university. The president of our Student Athlete Advisory Committee, the one who's running the show this year for our Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and is basically the head woman this year for Super Saturday, Brooke Martin. How are you doing today?
I am so great. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk about all things Super Saturday. So
Exactly.
I cannot wait to get into it.
That is very, very true. And this was very, very easy to come together. I was very nervous when I was pitching the idea. I was like, I don't know if Brooke's going to be able to come in. I don't know how she's going to be. You were so welcoming to coming in for this interview. I can't thank you enough for that. So let's start off with that, actually.
Okay.
You're president right now. You previously served with the VP. And this is your final Super Saturday.
Yes.
But it's also your first one as the lead role.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, what does it feel for you to not only have this be your final one, but also your first one in charge? What does it mean to you?
It means a lot. I feel like there's a little bit of pressure because it did go so well last year. Thank you, actually, to your brother, Franco. Franco was our president, so shout out him. He took the reins on everything, and I feel like now I know what to do and what to expect, so he really helped me on that aspect. But I mean, last year we had to do so much to prepare and get ready for it, and we're already starting that with gift baskets, student athletes bringing in all their stuff for their individual baskets, professors bringing stuff in. So I feel like we have a good jump on all that stuff and getting ready to kind of put it all together. I think organization is going to be our key to making sure that it all runs smoothly. I was we have all hands on deck. All sports are coming in. It's going to be a great showing. We have every student athlete from their team is going to be in participation. They're going to be sitting, watching the games. So I think it'll go really well. I'm a little nervous because it is my first time running the show, but I know that I have my VP. He's playing. But I have my treasurer with Nicole, and then Jill, our acro girl. So I feel like we will all work together and make it run really smoothly.
You touched on a little bit earlier. You touched on learning as the VP. What was one of the biggest things that you learned from your 2 years serving as VP that has carried over to now?
Honestly, there's so much more behind the scenes stuff than you even could imagine that goes into what we do in Student Athlete Advisory Committee. I just kind of thought, you show up your monthly meeting, you get your team involved, you do what you have to do, you post your stuff. No, we have exec meetings once every couple weeks. We're talking to the SAAC. We're talking to all these people, trying to set all this stuff up, working on bringing new legislation forward, doing all of these university type of what do you call it, community service stuff. So it's we're doing all of this stuff behind the scenes to set it up, and then to actually put it into play is just there's a lot of work that goes into it, which I love because it's so much fun. But it's definitely another thing on top of athletics and academics. So it's a big commitment, but it's a good one.
Yeah, we'll touch on your athletic part in a second, but I also want to go to this. You mentioned before, actually just recently, you said there's a lot of work and there's a lot of fun that goes into it. One of the most fun events that we have on campus is that student-led volleyball game.
Yes.
And that has garnered a lot of success here. You've actually been nominated under the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. You've been nominated for, let me read this correctly, the Division II Award of Excellence for 3 years now. Yes. What's the secret ingredient do you find that has made that volleyball game so successful? Because on the surface, it just looks very simple. It's just students playing volleyball. There's some other events that go on after it. What's kind of been the thing that you would describe that's made it the success that it's been?
Everyone coming, everyone participating, everyone showing up and just having a great time. Having all of our student athletes involved and wanting to donate and wanting to participate has just made it go so much better than we could have even imagined. Like, we get donations from different things around campus. Like, we had gear this year for like winners. We did like a 50-50. You put your money in and then like you get gear. So it's like we had that. Everyone was so eager to like, put their money in, donate, like do their 100% giving, like do all of this stuff to make sure that like they're giving back to Caldwell, plus being there and having great energy and just like enjoying being around all of their fellow student athletes. It just makes for such a great event. And the help that everyone else in SAAC, all student athletes like around campus, like they just make it such a great time. And I'm so thankful.
I want to go to this now. I firmly do believe that I think innovation is key for a lot of programs to really push the boundaries and go forward. One of the best innovations that you guys brought this year was this Cougars Around Campus idea, this passport thing. It got a lot of student athletes and a lot of students just in general to go to a lot of these games, some of which like many of them haven't seen before. A lot of them went, like I saw so many people going to cross-country races. I've never seen this amount of participation in cross-country races. Volleyball got a great showing. Women's and men's soccer got incredible showings as well. How did that all come about? Was it something that was planned and just never really got off the ground? Take me to those meetings. What was it like planning and building that Cougars Around Campus idea?
So this idea kind of started back my freshman year when we were in like the beginning stages of team supporting teams. So that's when like, you pick a game and then you want your entire team to kind of go and support. So we had been touching upon that during our SAAC meetings. The Cougars Around Campus thing was kind of like to hold people accountable for actually going. And I mean, the more stamps you get on your passport, the more gear that you get. So there's a little prize for going. So it kind of holds people accountable. And it's like, oh, I go, I get a t-shirt. Oh, I go, I get a hat. Oh, so that I think is kind of like what was the driving force of that, is like you go and you get something. And then you also end up loving watching the sports you're playing. Like, I went to soccer games this year. No offense to them at all, but I hadn't gone to soccer games before, but they're so much fun. Like, I enjoyed going and I wanted to go back for more. So like it made an impact around campus. We're trying to, for the spring, for our spring passport, is making it like an online QR code. So if you forget the, actual material paper, you can just scan that and then you can also, go get your gear, go to the game, watch the games, cheer your team on. So yeah. We have a lot of good stuff coming this spring. I'm excited. That's
great. That's awesome to hear. Now I want to transition. I said earlier we're going to talk about your athletic stuff, and I'm looking at your softball stats. They're quite remarkable, to put it lightly. A SAAC all-academic team member. You were on the Spring 2024 honor roll at the president's level, which means that you had a GPA of around 3.5 to about 3.99. Heavy in academics. That's one thing that I've talked to many sources about. They said Brooke Martin's one of the smartest people they've ever met in their life. And at captain this year, playing first base and catcher, your stats are unbelievable. I'll get to those in a second. But take me through the beginning stages of when you were playing softball. When did you feel like, here at Caldwell, when did softball finally click for you?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. I mean, when I committed here, my senior year, junior year, long time ago now. I kind of knew it was my fit right when I got here. I loved Coach Johnson. I watched practice and I was like, wow, like they're really good. Like I want to be part of this. It definitely was a learning curve at first because I'm from a small town in Maine. Like softball is not nearly as competitive as it is here. So once I got here, I was like, wow, like I really need to like work and I need to make sure like I prove myself. So I was behind an insanely good first baseman, Maya Rodriguez, for 2 years. And then after my first year, I kind of like worked my way up to like being like a DP and pinch hitting and like finding my role. And then last year with Coach Lindsay, our new coach, love her, she's great. I'm so thankful she's here. It's just kind of a different like spot that I was put into. I was put into more of like a leadership position, which I had to really like dive into head on because we hadn't had that. We had so many returners our first 2 years come back and like lead us to so much success that it was like up to like the juniors last year and a couple seniors to really do that. So I think just kind of like taking on like the leadership position and just like working like with the girls, it really just kind of like meshed into a really good team atmosphere for us. So I think that's what's driving us forward for sure.
Exactly. We were talking before we actually got on the air. We were talking a little bit before about the team this season. Mm-hmm. And I'm going through and looked back at your stats. As I said, 112 games you've played in. And in those 112 games, you've had a batting average about 322, which is just incredible. 78 hits. You had a career high of 43 last year, 35 RBIs the last 2 seasons. And your fielding percentage is absolutely incredible. What's been the key for you to be so consistent, not just at the plate, but in the field as well? Again, you're playing at first base. That's one of the most difficult positions you could play, specifically in the infield. What's been the key for you to be so consistent both at the plate and in the field?
Probably just, having my coach, my teammates trust me. Ashley, our shortstop, we've been together this is our 4th year together. So I feel like we've built a really strong connection. So just knowing that my teammates trust me and knowing that my coaches trust me to put me in positions to be successful, I think has just really helped both offensively and defensively. I mean, this is unfortunately my last ever season of softball. So I guess our kind of theme for this year is we have nothing to lose. We have nothing to lose. We are going to go and we're going to play balls to the walls every single game that we play. And we are just going to have so much fun and just do whatever we can to be successful. And I feel like that's just kind of the mentality that we're trying to get everyone to wrap their head around and just be all in, all together. And I feel like that's just going to really push us towards success. So just, the trust from my teammates and my coaches has really been a driving factor for me.
That's great. That's amazing to hear. And we're going to end off with this. Okay. Captain on softball, president of Student Athletic Advisory Committee. Very, very smart you are, but there's a lot of different things that go on in your life. As you mentioned before, it's a very, very hectic process, both academically and athletically. Who would be the first person you would say, when crisis arrives, who or what do you lean on to help you get through that?
My roommates. My roommates and also my teammates. I've roomed with my roommate, Jess Klein, since our freshman year, and we've played together now for 4 years. She is my rock. She is my go-to. We lean on each other for everything. I was her and probably my mom. I'll call my mom, and I'm going through it, and I'm please help me. But, yeah, definitely my team. But, yeah, my roommate, Jess, she's the best. My best friend here.
My guest at this time is a junior on our men's basketball squad. He has taken over the SAAC by storm. He's a 2-time conference player of the week, will potentially get a 3rd and maybe even more. He currently sits 11th in the conference in points per game and 6th in rebounds per game, averaging 15 and 7. DeAngelo Horn is sitting with us now in the Cougar Spotlight Podcast studio. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off with this. What do you feel like makes your game so versatile? Watching film, I've seen so much about you. Your hustle up and down the floor, your ability to score from inside and outside, your ability to defend. What do you think makes your game so versatile?
I say this, my mindset of working hard and stuff like that, knowing and not wanting nobody to take anything from me and stuff like that.
Your experience that you gained, because you've been at 2 community colleges. You've been at Dawson Community College and Lamar Community Colleges, both of which have been in Colorado. What do you think the experience you've gained from those 2 community college stints has helped you prepare you for CU? You mentioned a little bit before off camera that playing at JUCO is no joke compared to playing at Division II. There's a lot of physicality that comes through in the JUCO play. How do you feel like that's helped you prepare for Division II?
It helped me a lot. It helped me mentally and physically by just having to go out there every night and just work hard every play. Just having it was every night was a fight. So it just prepared me to come here because this conference is the same way, it seems like. So it helped me a lot.
And you also mentioned a little bit off camera as well. You were speaking to Coach Johnson when you were at Lamar before you came over to Caldwell. What was your first impressions of Coach Johnson, not just on those phone calls, but that first actual in-person meeting? What were those like for you?
It was good. Coach Johnson's a good guy. He showed me a lot of love when I got here, and I liked that a lot when I showed up here.
And now I firmly believe, I wrote down on my notes when I was going through looking at your stats, the one word that kept jumping out to me was dominant. You have a dominant presence on the floor, offensively and defensively. I've never seen an individual hustle up a floor as hard as you do. How have you been able to be so consistently dominant everywhere you've gone, not just in college, but in high school as well? You're an incredible high school career, 14-6-2 average, second team all-conference player as well. How have you been able to be so dominant everywhere you've gone?
Once again, it's like my mindset, and basketball is like something that it did save me, but basketball is like something I love to do. So I'm going to show up every day, any opportunity I get.
And you mentioned just before, you mentioned love doing it. A lot of players, they love the game and all that stuff, but they also take back a lot of great memories as well. What was your favorite basketball memory? It could be you hit a game-winning shot. It could be maybe like the first time you held up a championship. What would be your favorite basketball memory in your mind?
I could say dunks too, but that was like a lot. But I'll probably say my freshman year, like conference championship. We won our conference. We won our region. My freshman year, our regional championship before March Madness and Hush and all that. But that's probably my best moment.
That's amazing to hear. And I also firmly do believe, this is a take that I've given so much, that basketball, I think, is the great art form as far as sports. I feel like with football, just using that as an example, football, I feel like football's the great structure where there's always a game plan. You can manipulate a little bit, but I feel like there's always a game plan that you have to go out there. Yeah. Basketball's so fast and it's so quick. It's the great art form. You have a blank canvas every possession. And so a lot of people take a lot of inspiration from the past that they use to kind of develop their game. Who would you say inspired your game the most from both a physical aspect but also a mental aspect? Who would you say would be those players?
I got to say Kobe for the mindset. Just like I like to have that drive and working hard and all that. Probably physical. I say like DeMar DeRozan kind of too, because I used to like enjoying his game, playing like mid ranges and all that stuff. So I kind of like try and get into that. That's
a great shout. DeMar DeRozan is a great player to pick. I just want to put that out there. Incredible as well. That actually fits you incredibly well. And then last but not least, we'll leave off with this. Legacy, I think, is one of the most important things an athlete can really do. It's sort of, what do you want to leave behind for the future generations to follow? What do you hope the legacy for you, DeAngelo, would be for you as a basketball player? What's the legacy you hope to leave behind as a basketball player?
Someone, I don't know, I say this a lot, but working hard and stuff like that, and being able to like be there when it counts and all that.
I was really happy. It was kind of like a statement game for me. I didn't get a lot of offers coming out of high school, so coming into my first year of college, I wanted to make a statement. So coming in that locker room, I was pretty satisfied with my performance.
Welcome back to Cougar Spotlight Super Saturday edition. Our guest in studio today, she is a transfer guard from FDU Madison from Middlesex, New Jersey. She started 23 out of 24 games at FDU, scoring an average of 20-plus points a game. including the Rookie of the Year honor. Since she has come to Caldwell, she has been a monster, averaging into double-digit points as well. Neysa Aguilar joins us in studio today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in today. We know, obviously, it's a very busy week. You guys got Jefferson tomorrow on the road, but then you come back for a 3-game homestand. So you should be very, very excited. We're all excited to watch what you're about to do on the floor. But let's start off with that, actually. 20 points at FDU, double-digit points here at Caldwell. You've been on a tear recently where you've scored double digits in multiple games consecutively. How do you manage to consistently be so great at hitting that double-digit mark in points?
Starts at practice. Just, got to work hard in practice, and you got to practice a lot of shots that you're going to be taking in games. So a lot of mid-ranges, just getting a lot of reps in practice.
When I went back and I looked at your FDU performance, because I want to go to that a little bit, it was quite remarkable, to say the least. What a first impression you made at St. Elizabeth's, scoring 30 points with 9 rebounds and 2 assists as well, shooting 40% from the floor, 8 of 12 from the line. What was just the immediate feeling you were getting back into the locker room coming out of that game?
I was really happy. It was kind of like a statement game for me. I didn't get a lot of offers coming out of high school, so coming into my first year of college, I wanted to make a statement. So coming in that locker room, I was pretty satisfied with my performance.
You mentioned just now that you didn't really get a lot of offers, which is shocking considering that you finished your high school career with 1,300 career points and you made the senior all-star game. I find that quite remarkable, and you're an outstanding track and field runner as well. When you made the jump, before we actually even get into why you made the jump, let's start off with, once you did make that jump, what was kind of your first impressions, both in terms of the campus here at Caldwell, and what was your first impression of Coach Conforti and this roster that was in place?
So the campus, I like the campus. It's pretty much a small campus like FDU, so it wasn't too much to adjust to there. With the coaching staff, they were so involved and they cared so much. And, you obviously want a coach that cares a lot about the team. And it was just like off the court and on the court. You could see how much they really do care about you. So, yeah, that really caught my eye.
Now, you don't necessarily have to go fully into the weeds. But personally for you, going from, it's very rare that we see a superstar of this caliber leave after just 1 year. Typically, we'll see them stay for a couple more years and then eventually head into the portal. What ultimately did lead up to you, without going too deep into specifics, what ultimately did lead up to you entering the portal and going from FDU to Caldwell?
I wanted to see if I could kind of challenge myself, wanted to see what else I could do at a higher level.
That's great to hear. And let's transition back to high school. Let's keep the flashback train going a little bit. 1,000 points, you hit it on February 2nd, 2023. You finished that game with 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 10 steals, which is quite remarkable of a performance you had. When you finally hit that 1,000 mark, what was running through your mind? Was it overjoyed? Did you feel like a sense of like, we're not done yet, let's just finish out the game? What was kind of going through your mind when you hit that 1,000 mark?
Honestly, in that moment, I was focused on the game. I was trying to finish out the game, get the W at the end of the day. But I was very happy. Obviously, I got my 1,000. I was truly blessed. But in that moment, I was focused on getting the W.
Would you consider that moment of you hitting 1,000 point to be your favorite basketball memory, or do you personally feel like it was something else?
It had to be that one, yeah. Just to see like all my family, they were very proud of me. All my supporters, like my friends and family. So it was a good moment. It was a happy moment.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. Let's now jump to Caldwell. I've had the opportunity to call a lot of your games. I have to say, you have fit this roster like a glove. You have fit in so incredibly well in terms of both your scoring output, but also your ability to distribute. And your assist numbers have been incredible this year. I've always said that basketball is kind of the great art form as far as like the major sports go, where I feel like when you look at something like American football, it's very, very scripted. You have 11 guys out there, you have a play. Sometimes you can go off script. For the most part, everything is scripted. Basketball, I feel like it's like a blank canvas every single possession where the ball is just flown around. Who would you say, in your mind, is the biggest inspiration for your style of play?
For my style of play, honestly, I would say Kyrie Irving. Like, I don't know. Ever since I was little, I just loved watching like all his highlights and stuff and like try to copy all his moves. But he's a shifty guard, just like me, so I'd say him. I like his style of play.
Do you think that his crossover kind of led up to you having such great handles out on the floor today?
Yeah, I used to do like all his little handle workouts when I was younger and just, try and copy everything he did. So definitely the handle is from him.
Let's end off with this. I always say that, particularly for you being so young and at this early stage in your game, this isn't necessarily something that I would say is at the forefront of your mind. But I think it is something that is like to be discussed. As athletes, we always like to say, what do we like to leave behind? What do we like to leave for the next generation to follow us? For you, Neysa, what do you want your legacy to be when you finally finish off your final game, hang the shoes up in the rafters? What do you want your legacy to be, both as the player and as the person? What do you want your legacy to be?
As the player, I want to be the kind of player that left it all on the floor. I don't want to have any regrets at the end of the day. So that includes winning a CAC chip eventually. But as a person, just always supporting those around you, taking care of your circle, never giving up, just keep on focusing on your path, and, everything will fall into place.
On behalf of Athletics and Communication and Media Studies, thank you for watching Cougar Spotlight Podcast. Be sure to follow all of Caldwell Athletics' social media pages for more updates and upcoming shows, and tune in on the SAAC network as well so you never miss an episode. I'm Nick Iacopo. Thank you so much for tuning in, and take care.